So, so there was no, you had C. Rajagopalachari presenting his monumental recommendations on education. It was only in 1964 when Dr. Kothari, UGC chairman, who was putting together the Education Commission of 1964, that when Dr. Kothari met the mother, at least he had the sense to come and meet the mother, that, you know, first time mother spoke about that entire division of integral education and how education could. আমাকে correct করে দেবে আমি যদি একটু এদিক ওদিক ভুল করি. You are the master in this. So 47 to 64, and I'm saying in the last 70 years, has the education system been able to give rise to this. So the other thing is indifference. Surely Sri Aurobindo wouldn't have approved. Again, I'm not being, I'm not making any categorical statements. This is my reading. Sri Aurobindo wouldn't have approved of an education system, because if you read his preface to a national system of education, an education system which generates that indifference, which equates westernization with modernization. I mean, there is no issue with modernization. We need to marry technology with education. We need to do that. But has there been, was there a concerted effort and a system where, like Mother puts it very bluntly, that the government of India must recognize yoga? She puts it so bluntly in the 60s. Was there a system of education where this was recognized, where this was pushed through? So I just wanted to bring to light these two aspects, 1918 to 1948, and I feel that obviously we are developing in a number of parameters. We are. At the same time, there is a huge grassroots interest that is growing. Initiatives and efforts, spontaneous initiatives and efforts across the country in trying to connect to our roots. And you have so many interesting people having given up a fantastic, their own careers and, so many things. They have plunged themselves into trying to rediscover facets of Indianness, various dimensions. Some of you are here right in front of me. So I see this as a very positive initiative, and this is a line which I think Sri Aurobindo had said the danger is there, that we forget our Swadharma. We forget, basically, to put it very simply, we get deracinated, derooted. This danger was there. But I see now we are practicing international power politics. We are aspiring to emerge as a great power. We are bold enough to settle unsettled facts of history. We are standing up to international opinion. We are molding international opinion. We are trying to rework things within the country. We are trying to bridge fault lines which were left unattended. And at the same time, I see across a spontaneous effort and initiative and trying to preserve, rediscover, reconnect to our fundamental civilizational basics and roots. Now, obviously, the other thing is a very interesting secularism. I think this is a point that people, because the original constitution, I mean, it's the constitution, didn't have the word secularism. It is when there was a period when we are the children of emergency. I said we were born during the emergency. That is when the secularism, I can, I'm, after all, I'm wedded to a certain line of thought. So don't mind me if I get lapse into certain points and issues. Normally but the point is, secularism, the word was not inserted in the constitution. But we all said that yes, we are a secular country, because we are not an Islamic state like Pakistan. And therefore, everyone has equal right and dignity in this country. Of course, there was a point of view which said once upon a time that it is the minorities which must have the first right over resources in this country. To that, the present Prime Minister, who was then Chief Minister of Gujarat, said that he believes that it is the poor who have the first right over resources, regardless of which community to which they belong. I think that is a tremendous definition of what we stand for and who we are in that sense. Now, there was a period when, and it's very interesting, I want to also make a point here. It's very interesting because this, these are, like Sardar Patel gave a talk, he gave a public, in a public meeting in Kolkata in 1948. Why I keep referring to this period, because it's very interesting because Sri Aurobindo was there physically. And it's very interesting, someday perhaps, I tell Dev and Machi Prasad ji that I give up everything, you give me a room somewhere, I'll quarantine myself for a year and write 2-3 books that I need to on Sri Aurobindo. So in 1948, Sardar Patel and in 1950 Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, they made a very interesting point. They said that, look, they said that those who demanded Pakistan, a majority of Indian Muslims demanded Pakistan. And I'm coming to brass tacks. We're just having a kind of a tete-a-tete, that's why. A majority of Indian Muslims demanded Pakistan. But when Pakistan was formed, a majority of Indian Muslims didn't go to Pakistan. They stayed back in India. It's another matter, when I go to the interior of West Bengal now, those refugees, they ask me, they tell me, what is that Shaheen Bagh there? I said, yeah, they're protesting, they don't want to give you citizenship. They have a problem with giving citizenship to you. Who are those who are protesting? I said, they're Indian Muslims, they're misunderstanding us. We don't want to take away anyone's citizenship, but just they feel that they don't want to give you citizenship. So there was this one Bengali refugee who asked me this question and I had no answer. I didn't answer. He said, but their ancestors had demanded Pakistan, no? I said, yes. But then they didn't go to Pakistan, they stayed back to India. They stayed back in India. I said, yes. And he said, but we did not ask for Pakistan, no? We considered India our home. So why don't they want to give us citizenship? India is our cultural mother. Hamare maa, amar to maa, Bharat to amar maa. So, so what I'm saying is secularism. So we practiced a secularism which was lopsided and which was anti-religious, but anti-religious selectively. So whereby, I don't want to get into this trope of majority-minority, but since that is the lexicon that is normally to be used, where the majority was repeatedly told that it is your responsibility to look after the minority, wonderful, that is accepted, it is our duty, and where the majority was told that you have to hush up your sensibilities, your feelings, your sense of worship, and your faith. You have no right to publicly speak of it, because you would hurt some people. So this is the kind of, this is in a sense the kind of secularism that was practiced. And in this secularism, what happened was that not only was a vast section made indifferent to their identity and roots, but they were also made to feel that you are not progressive, that you are backdated, that your faith, your objects of worship are to be rejected, and therefore they are not to be accepted or recognized. Now, it's very interesting. So we talk about fanaticism. Now, it's very interesting that Amal writes about revivalism and secularism. I would like you also to read this chapter from that book. And imagine, in 1949, he's already discussing with Sri Aurobindo's blessings, revivalism and secularism. And Amal says, most of these bigots are a reaction to the fanaticism that was the father of the Muslim League and therefore the progenitor of Pakistan. That was in that context. They are fanaticism. They are the bigots, are the unnatural consequences of a most unnatural phenomenon, and are to a large extent a sort of defense mechanism against a menace that has kept on growing. To discourage them is indeed our duty, absolutely. But if our stand is not equally strong against the root cause of their upsurgence, we fail to be realists. To expect that no section of the Hindu community would indulge in reprisal for acts of injustice and brutality committed against Hindus in Pakistan is simply to be ignorant of human nature. In that context, he's speaking. Then, the way to avoid retaliation is not merely to preach Gandhism to the masses or to punish those who take law into their hands, but to add to all genuinely preventive or deterrent measures an attempt to stop the occasions of provocation. The second point to bear in mind about the Hindu sectarians is that in a perverse manner they suggest a truth which should never be neglected. The truth is, it is a reaction. This was in that context. In the last 70 years, what was the context? That if you said that the Cholas were great, that they had a huge empire, Kituda took us to Gangaikonda Cholapuram. Since then, last 20 years, you have taken your students. So, Dev and me, in the academic context in the last 70 years, would be considered as revivalists. That you are infusing in your students the glory of the Hindu empire of the Cholas. So, therefore, Dev will not get a tenureship professor in an Indian university. I will not get a project commissioned by the ICSSR if I told them that I would like to write about how Rajendra Chola's ship went up to the South China Sea and that we were a greater sea power, ocean maritime power than the Chinese, and that the Chinese general called Zhonghe never existed. China doesn't have any documentary proof to give saying that the Chinese general Zhonghe had come to the Indian Ocean, while I have documentary proof to show that the Cholas went up to the South China Sea. I want to write about them. I want to write about the revolutionary nationalists. I want to say that there was a very strong pre-Gandhian movement in India which established the foundations of India's freedom movement. I will get no sponsors. I will get no publishers. I will not get a podium. At least you are giving me a podium to say what I want to say. I will not get a podium. This is the kind of academic apartheid that has been practiced in the last 70 years in this country. As a result of that kind of concerted, systematic intellectual oppression and victimization, in 1960s, Mrs. Gandhi, in her wisdom, I feel she was the last of among those who had a deep sense of India and Indianness. And I'm happy that it is being recorded also. I have a very special letter of hers which I'm going to read out. She outsourced social science research in this country to the Marxists. And please read Sri Aurobindo's letter. The Indian communists will come. Sri Aurobindo has some very interesting points on them also. Will come. It's very interesting. Please read Sri Aurobindo's letter, clarification given to the statesman. You will find it on himself and other letters of historical interest, where he says that three forces have been since inception opposed to the ashram. Now, again, I'm being very politically incorrect. I'm just quoting Sri Aurobindo. And he says these are forces, the Dravidistan people, the Roman Catholics, and communists, who have always opposed the existence of the ashram. There was a report in the Statesman in Kolkata that Satyagrahis sat in front of the ashram, so don't worry, 49.